On a crowded night in 1993, as Johnny Depp performed inside the Viper Room, panic quietly spread outside. A young star had collapsed on the sidewalk. That star was River Phoenix, just 23 years old, while his girlfriend, Samantha Mathis, watched helplessly. For years, what really happened that night was barely discussed. Why did it unfold the way it did? And what truths were never fully told? River Phoenix escaped a childhood inside a religious cult to become one of Hollywood's brightest hopes, only to have his life end suddenly outside the notorious Viper Room. What led him there that night, and what has only recently come to light? This is the heartbreaking truth about River Phoenix. River Phoenix was born River Jude Phoenix on August 23, 1970, in Oregon. His name reflected his parents' countercultural beliefs. River, inspired by the spiritual imagery in Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, and Jude, taken from the Beatles' song Hey Jude. His parents, Arlen Phoenix and John Lee Bottom, were deeply immersed in the free-spirited ethos of the late 1960s. They met in 1968 when Arlen was hitchhiking across the country and John picked her up in California. Within a year, they were married. But stability was never part of the plan. Instead of settling down, they raised their children in a roaming, unconventional lifestyle. The family lived out of a mobile home, moving constantly, with each child born in a different state. They practiced strict veganism, rejected Western medicine, relied on herbal remedies, and avoided vaccinations, believing spiritual enlightenment mattered more than material security. River was the eldest of 5 children, all of whom would later find success in the entertainment world. His sister Rain became an actress and musician. Joaquin Phoenix, originally called Leaf, would go on to become an Oscar-winning star, and sisters Liberty and Summer also pursued acting. But their early years were far from glamorous. River later described his childhood as desperate. From a young age, he showed remarkable musical talent, especially as a guitarist. But it wasn't for fun. River and his siblings often busked on street corners, singing hymns and cover songs just to earn enough money to eat. The Phoenix children's talent quickly drew attention. Their street performances became so popular that crowds would swell until police were forced to step in and clear the sidewalks. Still, the siblings kept performing. It was how they survived. Because the family moved constantly, River never had a formal education. His parents taught him the basics, and he was curious and bright, but he lacked any stable grounding. As one screenwriter later observed, he had no deep roots in history or literature. In 1973, his parents made a far more damaging choice. Searching for spiritual meaning, they joined the Children of God, a group now widely recognized as a cult that preyed on vulnerable families. What followed was River's most drastic relocation yet. The family was sent to Caracas, Venezuela, where they lived on an agricultural compound and worked as missionaries and fruit pickers. What was presented as a spiritual community became a nightmare. The Children of God later became notorious for severe abuse inflicted on members of all ages. River was not spared. Years later, he revealed that he was coerced into sexual acts at an extremely young age and spoke of withdrawing completely from sexuality throughout much of his childhood. The trauma left deep psychological scars. In 1977, his parents finally became disillusioned with the cult and returned the family to the United States. That decision changed everything. River's mother found work as a secretary at NBC, and one day a talent agent spotted the Phoenix children singing near her workplace. Charmed, she signed all of them on the spot. River stood out immediately. His charisma and natural ability were undeniable. By age 10, his career was underway. Within a year, he appeared in commercials for major brands like Mitsubishi, Ocean Spray, and Saks Fifth Avenue. The Phoenix siblings soon caught the attention of casting director Penny Marshall, who helped sign them to a deal with Paramount Pictures. River's charisma stood out immediately. Along with his sister Rain, he was hired as an audience warm-up performer on the children's show Real Kids, an early sign that he was meant for the spotlight. By 1980, River was fully focused on acting. He began auditioning for television roles and quickly made an impression. While trying out for the short-lived series 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, he charmed producers by bringing his guitar and delivering a spot-on Elvis Presley impression. Acting wasn't his only strength. Fellow child actor Corey Feldman later recalled that they became friendly rivals on the audition circuit and revealed that River was also a skilled tap dancer. River's true breakthrough came in 1984 with the after-school special The Riddle of Dyslexia, which also featured a small role by his younger brother, Joaquin Phoenix. Having struggled with dyslexia himself, River brought raw authenticity to the role. The performance stunned audiences and critics alike, instantly elevating him from promising child actor to serious young talent. Offers for larger film and television roles soon followed. One of his later TV appearances would gain renewed attention years afterward. In 1985, River appeared in the miniseries Robert Kennedy and His Times, portraying the young son of Robert F. Kennedy. But his career was only accelerating. That acceleration exploded in 1986 with Stand By Me, based on a story by Stephen King. River's performance was universally praised, and at just 16 years old, having been only 14 during much of filming, he became one of the most celebrated young actors in Hollywood. Many believed his best work was still ahead of him. If there's one moment from River Phoenix's career that lingers for many viewers, it's the scene in Stand By Me where his character finally breaks down and confesses his pain to his best friend. Director Rob Reiner encouraged Phoenix to draw from his own experiences, particularly feelings of betrayal by adults in his life. Given what Phoenix had already endured, it's hard not to imagine how deeply that scene cut. He delivered a devastating performance. When the cameras stopped, Phoenix couldn't. He kept crying and needed time and support to regain his composure. The pain was real, and it seemed to fuel his work. Later that same year, he took on another major role opposite Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren in The Mosquito Coast. Director Peter Weir was openly awed, later saying Phoenix possessed something beyond acting skill, an ineffable presence he believed even Laurence Olivier lacked. During filming in Belize, Phoenix also began a relationship with his on-screen love interest, Martha Plimpton. Ironically, the two had met a year earlier and initially disliked each other. Phoenix even admitted they couldn't stand each other. But in Belize, sparks flew. Their relationship became intense, affectionate, and often turbulent. Phoenix's deep sensitivity shaped everything, including love. A committed vegan and animal rights activist, he carried those convictions into his personal life. Plimpton once recalled a night out in New York when she ordered soft-shell crab. Phoenix stood up and walked out. She later found him on Park Avenue in tears, devastated by the thought of an animal being eaten. That emotional openness, so raw, so uncompromising, defined not only Phoenix's relationships, but also the extraordinary power of his performances. Despite its big budget and star-studded cast, The Mosquito Coast failed to connect with audiences or critics. The reception stunned River Phoenix. In later interviews, he spoke candidly about his disappointment, revealing an unusually harsh self-awareness for someone so young. What troubled him most was that he actually felt better about his work in The Mosquito Coast than in Stand By Me, the film that had earned him widespread praise. That disconnect pushed him into periods of doubt and self-criticism. His first true leading role, A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon, should have felt like a breakthrough. Instead, it left him shaken. Phoenix later admitted the film didn't turn out as he'd hoped and blamed himself for its shortcomings. He even suggested the role might have been better suited to someone more masculine, like Tom Cruise. It was a telling moment, proof that success didn't quiet his insecurities. What's easy to forget is just how young he still was. Even as his career took off, Phoenix was legally a child, still under his parents' care. The family continued their restless lifestyle, moving constantly. By the time River turned 18, they had relocated more than 40 times. With his newfound financial success, he decided to change that. Known for his generosity, he bought property so his family could finally settle, purchasing ranches in both Florida and Costa Rica. That same year brought another major milestone. Phoenix starred alongside Martha Plimpton in Running on Empty, directed by Sidney Lumet. The performance marked a turning point. Critics praised his quiet intensity, and at just 18 he became one of the youngest actors ever nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win, losing to Kevin Kline, but the outcome didn't seem to matter to him. When Kline's name was announced, Phoenix leapt to his feet in genuine joy. His mother later recalled having to hold him back from rushing over to congratulate the winner. Disappointment, she said, never even crossed his mind. Phoenix's next standout performance came in the 1991 independent film Dogfight. Though the role earned praise, it wasn't easy for him. Starring opposite Lily Taylor, Phoenix played a U.S. Marine, far removed from his own gentle, idealistic nature. Taylor later reflected on how deeply the role unsettled him, saying, "He was such a hippie, and here he was playing this Marine. It actually caused him a lot of discomfort. I don't think he enjoyed that, actually, getting into that psyche." Phoenix was far more comfortable in roles that aligned with his progressive beliefs. That same year, he delivered one of the most important performances of his career in My Own Private Idaho, starring alongside Keanu Reeves. As a sensitive, vulnerable gay hustler, Phoenix drew widespread acclaim for the humor, empathy, and depth he brought to the role. The performance helped push queer cinema into the mainstream and cemented his reputation as a fearless actor. But behind the scenes, his life was beginning to change. Around the time of filming Idaho, Phoenix started experimenting casually with drugs. Rumors soon spread through Hollywood, with some claiming he arrived on set under the influence. Others, including director Gus Van Sant, denied ever seeing such behavior. Regardless of where the truth lay, Phoenix's struggles with substance use had begun. Those struggles eventually cost him his most important relationship. Martha Plimpton later described how his drug use escalated and how painful it was to watch. She recalled begging him to stop, arguments growing more intense, and finally accepting that she couldn't save him. He had to change himself, and he didn't want to yet, she said. Even so, Phoenix's career kept moving forward. His growing stature gave him choices. After briefly playing a young Indiana Jones in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, he was offered the chance to reprise the role in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles by none other than George Lucas. To many, it seemed like a dream opportunity. Phoenix turned it down. After years of trying to move beyond television, he wasn't willing to go backward, even for a major franchise. It was the decision of a confident actor. But acting, as it turned out, was no longer the thing driving him forward. Those closest to River Phoenix later said that acting was never his deepest love. Music was. He once explained that when he and his siblings played on street corners as kids, it wasn't just to survive, but because he genuinely dreamed of a future in music. As he grew older, that passion only deepened. Phoenix was a gifted singer, songwriter, and guitarist, and once fame gave him a platform, he began performing at small shows around Los Angeles, quietly carving out a second artistic life beyond Hollywood. His convictions extended far beyond music. Fiercely committed to veganism, Phoenix was just as intense about animal rights and environmental protection. He became a spokesperson for PETA, spoke at environmental rallies, and even wrote op-eds aimed at teenagers, hoping to influence his young fans. He put his money behind his beliefs too, purchasing roughly 800 acres of rainforest in Costa Rica to protect it from development. To the public, he embodied clean living, compassion, and purpose. And he worked hard to keep that image intact. Behind the scenes, though, Phoenix was struggling. Friends later said he wrestled with substance use, particularly alcohol, but kept it hidden from nearly everyone, terrified that it would shatter his reputation as Hollywood's conscience. For a long time, he succeeded. Then came the night everything unraveled. In late October 1993, Phoenix disappeared into several days of isolation with his close friend, John Frusciante. What began as hanging out turned into a prolonged binge, multiple drugs, no sleep, and no breaks. It was the prelude to a night that would haunt everyone involved. On October 30th, 1993, Phoenix was scheduled to perform at the Viper Room, a club partly owned by Johnny Depp. The plan was an informal Halloween jam session, a supergroup of famous friends making music together. Phoenix arrived with his brother Joaquin Phoenix and his girlfriend, Samantha Mathis. He hadn't slept in days. At one point during the night, River Phoenix quietly pulled aside his friend, musician Bob Forrest, and told him he didn't feel right. He said he thought he might be overdosing. Forrest hesitated. Phoenix was still standing, still talking, and tried to reassure him. He offered to take him home anyway. Strangely, Phoenix declined. Just moments after asking for help, he insisted he felt better. Forrest would later realize he was likely the last person River confided in. Phoenix had arrived at the club with his girlfriend, actress Samantha Mathis, who years later broke her silence about what she witnessed. At the time, she believed Phoenix was sober. What she saw that night shocked her. She later said he was high in a way that made me feel uncomfortable, a version of him she didn't recognize. As the night unraveled, her fear only grew. Mathis recalled seeing Phoenix arguing with the club's bouncers after an altercation inside. Security tried to remove him from the venue, and as he was led outside, he suddenly collapsed on the sidewalk. What happened next was chaotic and terrifying. Phoenix began convulsing violently on the pavement outside the Viper Room. People nearby struggled to tell if he was still breathing. His sister, Rain Phoenix, dropped to the ground and began giving him mouth-to-mouth. His younger brother, Joaquin Phoenix, desperately called 911, his voice breaking as he tried to explain what was happening. When paramedics arrived, they quickly realized the situation was dire. River Phoenix was in cardiac arrest. He was rushed by ambulance to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors fought to revive him. Despite their efforts, it was too late. At 1:51 a.m. on October 31st, 1993, River Phoenix was pronounced dead. He was only 23 years old. 2 weeks after River Phoenix's death, the full weight of what had happened became clear when his toxicology report was released. The findings were devastating. Phoenix had lethal levels of heroin and cocaine in his system, reportedly up to 8 times what would normally be fatal. According to reporting at the time by the Washington Post, additional substances were also found, including ephedrine, Valium, and marijuana. The coroner noted several unsettling details. There were no drugs found in Phoenix's stomach and no track marks on his body, leading investigators to conclude that the substances were likely ingested by snorting rather than injection. The official cause of death was listed as acute multiple drug intoxication. The autopsy report also reconstructed the final hours of his life, stating that witnesses at the club reported Phoenix had been speedballing, mixing heroin and cocaine, and later taking Valium. In the days after River Phoenix's death, the sidewalk outside the Viper Room quietly transformed into a place of mourning. Fans gathered there to leave candles, flowers, photographs, and handwritten notes, turning the club's entrance into a living memorial. Out of respect, the venue shut down for a full week. At the urging of its co-owner, Johnny Depp, the Viper Room also closed every Halloween for years afterward, honoring the night River was lost, until Depp eventually sold his share of the club in 2004. The media response, however, was far less gentle. Once the autopsy report confirmed that multiple drugs were present in Phoenix's system, coverage took on a harsher tone. The story became sensationalized. A young star known for veganism, activism, and clean living reduced to headlines about hypocrisy and excess. Some writers branded him the vegan James Dean, drawing easy parallels between two gifted actors who died far too young. For those who loved River, that portrayal felt deeply unfair. Friends and collaborators, including my own private Idaho director Gus Van Sant, pushed back, saying the press exaggerated Phoenix's substance use after his death. They argued that the real tragedy was not a life defined by addiction, but one bad night that ended with irreversible consequences. Years later, the loss still reverberates within his family. In a 2020 interview, River's younger brother, Joaquin Phoenix, spoke softly about how River's presence never truly left them. He shared a memory that has stayed with him ever since. River once told him, "You're going to be an actor, and you're going to be more well-known than I am." Joaquin said that in every film he makes, he still feels a connection to his brother, as if River is somehow there with him, watching from just beyond the frame. Joaquin and his partner, Rooney Mara, later named their son River in his honor. To capture his brother's spirit, Joaquin shared a simple line that River once lived by, words that now feel like a quiet mission statement for his memory. "Run to the rescue with love, and peace will follow."